I'm so glad, Jack said, then turned to Janet. His voice softened. And for the lady? Perhaps a glass of something honest? Janet looked at him, her heart hammering against her ribs. She saw the sweat on his brow, the sauce on his apron, and the raw, undisguised emotion in his eyes. He wasn't Austin. He wasn't the gay roommate. He was just Jack. I'll have what you're having, Jack, she said quietly. Janet, really, David sighed. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious, David, she said, her voice growing stronger. Jack, how is the trial going? Unsurpassed, Jack said, glancing back at Rodriguez, who was watching from the doorway with a growing sense of amusement, though I think I might have overstayed my welcome at this table. Wait, David snapped. I want the special, the paella, and make it quick. Jack leaned in close to David, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. The paella takes time, Mr. Vance. It's like a relationship. You can't rush it, and you certainly can't buy it. I'll make sure yours is memorable. Chapter 12. The Unraveling. The rest of the night was a blur. Jack cooked like a man possessed. He sent out the paella for table 4, with a garnish so elaborate it looked like a botanical garden. But as he watched from the kitchen, he saw Janet stand up. She said something to David, something that made him look stunned. She didn't wait for him. She walked out of the restaurant, her head held high, leaving her wine untouched. Jack threw his apron on the counter. I'm done. The job, Jack, Rodriguez called out. The cruise ship. Keep the ship, Jack shouted back, already running for the door. I've got a different destination in mind. He caught up to her on the sidewalk, the neon sign of La Casa del Sol casting a red glow over the pavement. The Santa Monica fog was starting to roll in again, cool and damp. Janet, wait. She stopped and turned around, her face streaked with tears. Why did you do that, Jack? Why did you come out there? Because I couldn't stand seeing you with him. Because he's a jerk and he doesn't deserve to be in the same room as you, let alone at the same table. And you do? She asked, her voice breaking. You, who spends all your time pretending to be someone else. You, who's planning to leave us for some boat in the Caribbean. Jack stepped closer, the space between them crackling with the electricity of years of unspoken words. I was only doing that because I thought I wasn't enough for you. I thought you wanted a stallion. I thought you wanted a cowboy, or a chef, or a world traveler. I wanted Jack, she whispered. I've always just wanted Jack. He reached out and took her face in his hands. His fingers were still warm from the stove, his skin smelling of garlic and saffron. I'm not going on that boat, Janet, he said. The only place I want to be is in apartment 201, with you, and Cindy, and even Mr. Furley. He kissed her, then not a fake, Austin-style kiss, but a real one. It was a kiss that tasted of salt and longing, of shared jokes and late-night snacks, of a friendship that had finally, inevitably, turned into something more. The fog swirled around them, hiding them from the world. For a moment, there was no deception, no landlords, no roommates. There was just the two of them, finally standing on solid ground. Chapter 13. The morning after again. The next morning, the apartment was quiet. The roses David Vance had sent were gone, replaced by a simple jar of wildflowers Jack had picked on his way home from the pier. Jack was in the kitchen, making coffee. He wasn't studying Spanish. He was humming a disco tune, his movements light and easy. Janet walked out of her room, wearing one of Jack's old flannel shirts over her nightgown. She looked at him and smiled a slow, secret smile that made his heart skip. "Good morning," he said, handing her a mug. "Good morning," she replied. The front door burst open. Cindy Snow entered, her hair a mess, her eyes wide with excitement. "You guys, you won't believe it. Mr. Furley just told me that his brother Bart is coming over for an inspection. We have to get ready." Jack and Janet looked at each other and burst into laughter. "Let him come," Jack said, putting an arm around Janet. "I think I'm done with the disguises." "Are you sure, Jack?" Cindy asked, confused. "What about the lease?" "We'll figure it out," Janet said, leaning into him. "Together." And as the sun rose over Santa Monica, casting long, golden shadows across the shag carpeting, They knew that whatever came next, landlords, brothers, or even cowboys, they were ready. Because in apartment 201, the best company wasn't three, it was exactly who they were meant to be. Chapter 14. The Serpent at the Gate. If Ralph Furley was a kaleidoscope of misplaced confidence, his brother Bart was a scalpel. Bart Furley didn't wear leisure suits. He wore charcoal grey wool that looked like it had been ironed with the intensity of 1,000 suns. His hair was silver, his eyes were the color of a winter sea, and he looked like a man who found joy in the fine print of a municipal code. "Ralph," Bart said, stepping into the apartment and immediately checking the top of the doorframe for dust. "I see the standards are as fluid as ever." "Bart, good to see you, buddy. Pal, brother," Ralph stammered, his ascot askew. "The building is doing great. Profits are up. Complaints are down mostly." Bart ignored him, his gaze fixing on Jack, who was still wearing a somewhat smug expression from his morning coffee with Janet. "And these are the tenants?" Bart asked, his voice cold. "Jack," Jack said, extending a hand. "Nice to meet you." Bart didn't take the hand. Instead, he looked at the wildflowers on the table. Wildflowers. How rustic. "Tell me, Ralph, is it common practice to allow young men to share living quarters with two attractive women in this neighborhood?" "Jack's special, Bart," Ralph interjected, his voice high-pitched. He's safe. You know, he's not interested in flowers." "Well." Jack felt the old lie tighten around his neck. He looked at Janet, who was standing by the wicker chair, her knuckles white as she gripped the armrest. He had promised to be done with disguises, but the cold, calculating look in Bart's eyes told him that the truth today would mean an eviction notice by sunset. Chapter 15. The Unbearable Weight of Truth. The inspection was a nightmare. Bart went through the apartment like a forensic investigator. He checked the plumbing, the carpet, and lingered for an uncomfortably long time at the door of Jack's bedroom. "I find it curious," Bart said, standing in the center of the living room, "that a young man would choose this specific arrangement. Most men of your age are looking for more traditional conquests." "I like the company, Mr. Furley," Jack said, trying to summon the safe persona, but finding it increasingly difficult after the night he had just spent with Janet. Every time he looked at her, he remembered the taste of the fog and the heat of her kiss. "And you, Miss Wood?" Bart turned his icy gaze to Janet. "You find Mr. Tripper's presence acceptable? No concerns about propriety? No late-night complications?" Janet took a breath. She looked at Jack, and for a second, she was tempted to tell the truth. To tell Bart that Jack was the most decent, talented, and wonderful man she had ever known, and that she didn't care about the lease. "He's my best friend," Janet said, her voice steady. "And he's the best roommate we could ask for. He makes us laugh, he makes us feel safe, and he makes a mean soufflé. That's all the propriety we need." Bart narrowed his eyes. "A soufflé. How charming. Ralph, I want to see the basement. Now." As the Furley brothers exited, the apartment felt like it had been sucked of its air. Jack collapsed onto the sofa. "He knows. I swear, he knows. He suspects," Cindy said, coming out from the shadows of the kitchen. "Unless what?" Jack asked. "Unless Austin comes back," Cindy suggested with a mischievous glint in her eye. "No," Jack and Janet shouted in unison. Chapter 16. The Final Showdown. The afternoon was a tense waiting game. Ralph came back upstairs, looking like he had been put through a meat grinder. "Bart wants to have dinner here. Tonight, he says he wants to see the real dynamic of the building management's flagship apartment." "Dinner? Tonight?" Jack stood up, his professional instincts kicking in. "Forget the saffron, Jack," Ralph pleaded. "Just make something normal. And, for heaven's sake, be gay. Be gayer than a chorus line at the Hollywood Bowl." The dinner was a masterclass in awkwardness. Jack served a simple roast chicken, but his nerves were frayed. He kept catching Bart looking at the way Janet handed him the salt, or the way Jack's hand lingered near hers when he poured the wine. "You seem very attentive to Miss Wood, Jack," Bart noted, his fork poised mid-air, for a man who is supposed to be uninterested. I'm attentive to everyone, Jack said, his voice a little too high. Oh, very, Cindy chirped, almost knocking over her water. He noticed my new earrings immediately. Bart smiled, a thin, predatory expression. I've seen this before. Ralph, you are a fool. You've let a fox into the henhouse. Mr. Tripper is no more gay than I am, and I'm going to make sure the board of directors hears about this breach of contract. The room went silent. Ralph looked at Jack with a desperate, pleading gaze.